Das Wasser zischte um sie herum, die Luft war feucht und metallisch. Sie hielt ihren Griff fest, während er das Rohr abstützte und den Riss mit einer provisorischen Klammer abdichtete. Als das Leck aufhörte, war die Stille ohrenbetäubend. Sie traten zurück und atmeten schwer. Sie hätten einen Stromschlag bekommen können, sagte er schließlich. Sie auch, er gab ein kurzes Nicken. Stimmt, zurück im Flur wartete Lilly und drückte ihren Skizzenblock an die Brust. Sie sah von einem zum anderen und runzelte die Stirn. Hat das Gebäude wieder zu laut geatmet, fragte sie. Ethan kauerte sich neben sie. Ja, aber dieses Mal haben wir es gehört. Ava spürte, wie die Ecke ihres Mundes zuckte, ein Lächeln drohte. Sie drückte es nieder, aber nicht, bevor Lilly es bemerkte. Sie sehen netter aus, wenn Sie lächeln, sagte das Mädchen sachlich und kehrte zu ihrer Skizze zurück. Ethan stand auf und warf Ava einen Blick zu, den sie nicht lesen konnte. Halb eine Herausforderung, halb etwas anderes. Als sie zurück zu den Aufzügen gingen, redete sie sich ein, dass es nicht darauf ankam, ob er mit dem Lüfter, dem Rohr, dem sogenannten Atmen recht hatte. Sie handelte mit Fakten, nicht mit Gefühlen. Aber irgendwo zwischen der Vibration unter ihrer Handfläche und der leisen Beobachtung des Mädchens wusste sie, dass Fakten nicht das Einzige waren, was ein Gebäude aufrecht erhielt. Manchmal waren es die Menschen, die sich weigerten, es fallen zu lassen. Der erste Schnee der Saison hatte die Stadt über Nacht mit einer dünnen weißen Schicht überzogen, die sich in dünnen Linien auf den Simsen des Ardent Towers festsetzte. Von ihrem Eckbüro aus konnte Ava den morgendlichen Verkehr sehen, wie er sich dahinschleppte, Auspuffabgase vermischten sich mit dem Dunst. Es hätte einfach ein weiterer Tag sein sollen. Ein Stapel Berichte, ein Meeting mit Investoren, die übliche Routine. Aber etwas zog ihren Blick auf den Platz unten. Ethan war dort. Nicht in einem Heizungsraum, nicht in irgendeiner unsichtbaren Lüftung, sondern draußen in der bitteren Kälte, kauerte er sich zu einer kleinen Gruppe von dick eingepackten Kindern. Sie drängten sich um ihn, ihre behandschuhten Hände hielten Tassen mit Kakao. Ein tragbarer Heizstrahler summte an seinen Füßen. Er reparierte etwas, kein Gebäude, etwas aus weggeworfenem Sperrholz. Sie beugte sich näher an das Glas und sah eine behelfsmäßige Bank, direkt am Brunnen des Platzes. Ihre Assistentin, Marla, kam mit einer Akte herein. Das macht er jedes Jahr, sagte sie, als sie Ava beim Starren erwischte. Kinder aus dem Obdachlosenheim gegenüber. Er repariert die Heizung in ihrem Schlafsaal, baut ihnen Sachen, sagt nie ein Wort darüber, Ava hielt ihren Ton neutral. Warum ist das nicht? In einem CSR-Bericht, Marla lächelte schwach. Weil er es nicht für einen Bericht tut, an diesem Nachmittag ging sie am Aufenthaltsraum im 15. Stock vorbei und blieb in der Tür stehen. Ethan war wieder dort, dieses Mal saß er am Ecktisch mit 2 Hausmeistern und einem Wachmann. Sie teilten sich eine Pizzaschachtel, lachten über etwas, das sie nicht hören konnte. Lilly saß neben ihrem Vater, schwang mit den Beinen und reichte Servietten aus wie eine winzige Gastgeberin. Als einer der Mitarbeiter Ava bemerkte, verstummte das Gespräch. Sie trat hinein, bevor sie sich selbst in Frage stellen konnte. Ich dachte, die CEO ist in einem Glasturm, sagte Ethan, nicht unfreundlich. Manchmal wird Glas kalt, erwiderte sie und nahm einen leeren Stuhl. Was ist der Anlass? Franks Geburtstag, sagte Lilly strahlend und zeigte auf den Wachmann. Papa sagte, wir sollten sein Lieblingsessen teilen, Ava blickte zu Frank. Wie alt genug, um es besser zu wissen, als an seinem Geburtstag zu arbeiten, schmunzelte Frank. Ethan schob ihr ein Stück Pizza zu. Es ist kein Catering, aber es ist ehrlich, sie nahm es. Der Teig war zu dick, der Käse etwas fettig, und doch war es das Wärmste, was sie seit Wochen gegessen hatte. 2 Tage später, kurz nach der Dämmerung, erlitt das Gebäude einen plötzlichen Stromausfall. Notbeleuchtung flackerte auf, aber die Aufzüge blieben auf halber Höhe stehen. Ava blieb an ihrem Schreibtisch und nahm Anrufe von Abteilungsleitern entgegen. Dann hörte sie eine Stimme im Notfalltreppenhaus widerhallen. Etans. Alle, ruhig bleiben. Ein Stockwerk nach dem anderen. Wir bringen sie zur Lobby. Am Handlauf festhalten, sie trat hinaus und sah ihn, wie er eine Reihe von Mitarbeitern die Treppe hinunterführte, eine Taschenlampe in der einen Hand. Lilly trottete mit einem Leuchtstab hinterher, als wäre es eine Parade. Als die letzte Gruppe die Lobby erreichte, hörte sie Lilly flüstern. Papa, wir sollten die Leute im Heizungsraum überprüfen. Sie haben keine Fenster. Ethans Antwort war leise, aber Ava hörte sie. Deshalb fangen wir dort an. Am nächsten Morgen fand sie sich im Wartungskorridor wieder. Sie sagte sich, es sei, um die Protokolle nach dem Stromausfall zu überprüfen, aber sie wusste es besser. Ethan war in seinem Element, zog ein Ventil fest. Lilly saß im Schneidersitz auf dem Boden und malte eine Zeichnung des Gebäudes aus. Sie sah zu Ava auf und grinste. Willst du sehen, was ich gemacht habe? Ava kauerte sich hin und betrachtete die Seite. Der Wolkenkratzer stand hoch unter einem blauen Himmel, aber was sie fesselte, war die Figur, die an der Basis gezeichnet war, ein Mann in Arbeitskleidung, der in der einen Hand einen Schraubenschlüssel und in der anderen ein Herz hielt. Das ist Papa, erklärte Lilly. Er hält das Gebäude am Leben, und die Herzen sind für alle drinnen. Ava blickte zu Ethan. Sie zeichnet immer so, sagte er, die Augen immer noch auf seine Arbeit gerichtet, nur wenn sie die Wahrheit sagt. An diesem Abend erwischte Maler Ava dabei, wie sie den Sicherheitsfeed der Lobby beobachtete. Auf dem Bildschirm hielt Ethan einem älteren Kurier die Tür auf und nahm dem Mann die schwere Tasche ab, als würde sie nichts wiegen. Keine Kameras auf ihn gerichtet, kein Publikum, nur eine gedankenlose Tat der Freundlichkeit. Maler zögerte, dann fragte sie, er war schon immer so. Stört es sie so sehr? Ava antwortete nicht sofort. Ihr Instinkt war, es zu leugnen, es als irrelevant abzutun, aber etwas in ihrer Brust weigerte sich, mitzuspielen. Es stört mich nicht, sagte sie schließlich. Es macht die Dinge komplizierter. Am darauffolgenden Wochenende arbeitete sie spät, als sie Gelächter vom Platz heraufhallen hörte. Sie ging wieder ans Fenster. Dieses Mal war es nicht die Bank oder der Kakao. Es war Ethan, der einem kleinen Jungen beibrachte, einen Basketball auf dem Finger zu drehen. Lilly klatschte zur Ermutigung. Die Mutter des Jungen stand in der Nähe, die Wangen rosa von der Kälte. Ava kannte sie nicht. Die Dankbarkeit in ihrem Lächeln war unverkennbar. Ava blieb lange am Fenster stehen, nachdem sie gegangen waren. Sie bemerkte, dass ihre Knöchel schmerzten, da sie den Fenstersims so fest umklammerte. Am Montagmorgen war das Gebäude wieder in seinem gewohnten Rhythmus. Aber Ava konnte die Ansammlung von Momenten nicht abschütteln, die Bank im Schnee, die Pizza im Pausenraum, die Evakuierung beim Stromausfall, die leise Art, wie er eine Last trug, die nicht seine war. Im Konferenzraum erwischte sie sich dabei, wie sie eine Frage stellte, die sie noch nie zuvor gestellt hatte. Hat jemand die Zahlen für die Auswirkungen auf die Gemeinschaft bei diesen Upgrades durchgerechnet? Der Raum wurde still. Ramons Braue hob sich leicht. Auswirkungen auf die Gemeinschaft, ja, sagte sie und blickte auf den leeren Stuhl, den Ethan zuvor eingenommen hatte. Es ist wichtig, und obwohl es niemand sonst im Raum wusste, konnte sie Lillys Stimme in ihrem Kopf hören. Die Herzen sind für alle drinnen. Der Konferenzraum roch schwach nach verbranntem Kaffee und teurem Parfüm. Bodentiefe Fenster umrahmten eine graue Manhattan-Skyline, die der Stadt das Gefühl gab, sowohl unendlich als auch klaustrophobisch zu sein. Ava saß am Kopf des langen Glastisches, ihr Ausdruck war eine Maske ruhiger Autorität. Ihr gegenüber schob ein Vertreter von Corvin Development eine elegante Mappe zu ihr. Sie geben uns das technische Untergeschoss, sagte er, und wir geben dem Arden Tower eine Injektion von $25 Millionen. Ohne weitere Bedingungen. Ethan, der 2 Stühle entfernt als technischer Berater saß, berührte die Mappe nicht einmal. Es gibt immer Bedingungen, sagte er. Der Mann grinste. Es ist ungenutzter Raum. Wir werden ihn in ein Rechenzentrum umwandeln. Sie werden kaum bemerken, dass wir da sind. Sie werden es bemerken, wenn die Hitze und Vibrationen ihrer Server die Umweltsysteme des Gebäudes beeinträchtigen, erwiderte Ethan, beugte sich vor. Und wenn der Abfluss des Kühlmittels in die Regenrinnen gelangt, Ava warf ihm einen Blick zu. Mr. Carter, bitte, aber Ethan gab nicht nach. Sie können das Unternehmen heute retten, Ava, aber Sie werden es für Jahre lahmlegen. Es geht nicht nur um Beton und Drähte. Es geht um die Menschen, die jeden Tag die Luft in diesem Gebäude atmen, ihre Finger verkrampften sich um ihren Stift. Glauben Sie, ich verstehe Verantwortung nicht, ich denke, das tun Sie, sagte er ruhig. Deshalb sitzen Sie dort. Aber Verantwortung ist nicht nur gegenüber den Aktionären. Sie ist gegenüber den Menschen, die es sich nicht leisten können, an diesem Tisch zu sitzen, der Raum wurde still. Für einen Moment konnte sie nur das schwache Summen der Klimaanlage hören, von der sie wusste, dass er sie persönlich in der Krise des letzten Monats wieder zum Leben erweckt hatte. Nachdem die Besprechung vertagt worden war, fand sie ihn im Servicekorridor, wo er ein Druckmessgerät überprüfte, als wäre nichts passiert. Sie haben mich vor einem wichtigen Investor untergraben, sagte sie. I stopped you from making a decision you'd regret, he replied without looking up. Her voice sharpened. Do you have any idea what's at stake? This deal could secure our financial stability for the next decade. He finally turned eye steady. Do you have any idea what it's like to explain to your kid why the air smells like bleach? Or why the drinking fountain water's cloudy? Because that's what will happen if you let them tear apart this floor. Something in her chest shifted uncomfortably. You don't know the weight I carry, Ethan. He gave a small, almost sad smile. You'd be surprised. My weight has a name and she's 9 years old. Every decision I make is with her in mindestens that night. Ava sat alone in her apartment, the city's glow bleeding in through tall windows. She tried to read the proposal again, but the words blurred. Every time she pictured the numbers 25 million investor confidence stability, she also saw Lily's drawing a man holding a wrench in one hand and a heart in the other. She remembered something Lily had said in the break room, the hearts for everybody in sight. Her phone buzzed. It was Ramon from the board. You'll recommend the deal tomorrow, he asked, more statement than question. Her pause was just long enough to make him repeat her name. Ava, I'll think about it, she said, and hung up before he could press further. The next morning, Ethan was in the boiler room, oil-stained gloves gripping a wrench. Ava stepped inside the hum of machinery, swallowing her words until she spoke louder. I'm supposed to sign today. He didn't look up. Then you've already made your choice. She moved closer. Don't presume to know my mindestens, he set the wrench down, finally meeting her eyes. Then proved me wrong. Ava felt the weight of his stare, the quiet challenge in it. She thought of the board, the press, the shareholders. She thought of the children from the shelter, the tenants, the staff who never saw a bonus but kept the building alive. You really believe we can survive without that investment? She asked. I believe we can't survive if we sell the foundation out from under us, he said. Buildings don't collapse in a day. They rot from the inside. She exhaled, long and slow. You make it sound so simple. It's not, he admitted. It's just right. By the time she returned to her office, the decision was still clawing at her insides. She stared at the skyline again, wondering if anyone else up there wrestled with choices like this or if most people just took the deal and moved on. When Marla came in to remind her of the signing, Ava surprised herself. Tell them I'll need another hour. Marla blinked. They're not going to like that. I'm not here to be liked, Ava said, but even she could hear the shift in her own voice. Down in the lobby, she caught sight of Ethan escorting a group of school kids on a tour, Lily trotting ahead to press the elevator button. He didn't see her, but she lingered just long enough to watch him kneel to adjust a boy's scarf, smiling at something the child whispered. The pen in her hand suddenly felt lighter. At the board meeting that afternoon, Ava laid the folder on the table but kept it closed. I've reviewed Corvin's proposal. She began, voice steady, and I cannot in good conscience recommend it. The room erupted. Words like reckless, short-sighted, and unprofessional flew at her. She absorbed each one spine straight. When Ramon finally asked, then what's your plan? Ava, she answered without hesitation. My plan, she said, is to protect the heart of this building. We'll find another way. Somewhere deep down, she hoped Ethan would hear about this meeting. Not because she needed his approval, she wasn't ready to admit that, but because she wanted him to know she'd listened. The storm had rolled in like an uninvited guest wind, clawing at the glass, rain streaking down in furious sheets. Inside Arden Tower, the night crew moved quietly, their footsteps softened by the plush carpets of a mostly sleeping skyscraper. Ava was still in her office, tie undone, hair slightly mussed from a day of arguments. She was reviewing a draft of the press release about rejecting Corvin's proposal when the shrill staccato wail of the emergency alarm cut through the quiet. The sound was different from the usual drills, lower, harsher. Her intercom crackled. "MS Hot, we've got a code 6 in the sub-basement security," said his voice tight. "Gas leak alert. Source unknown. Evacuation is recommended immediately." She was halfway to the elevator when she heard another voice on the line. "Where exactly?" It was Ethan. "Boiler room intake shaft," the guard replied. "Pressure spiking. It could ignite if the line cut off with a hiss of static." When Ava reached the ground floor, she saw him already pulling on a faded utility jacket, gloves hanging from his pocket. "You're going down there?" she demanded. He didn't break stride toward the service elevator. "If we wait for the fire team to clear it, the pressure will blow the seals. Then it won't just be a leak. It'll be a building-wide evacuation in the middle of a storm." "That's insane." Ethan stepped into the elevator, ice locking on hers. "I thought you wanted to protect the heart of this building." "Well, this is its heart attack." Something in her, call it instinct, call it pride, wouldn't let him go alone. She shoved past the doors just before they closed. "Are you out of your mind?" he asked, pressing the button for the sub-basement. "Apparently, yes," she shot back. "You think I'll let you die down there without a witness?" He gave a short laugh, dry as the smell of ozone already creeping into the shaft. "You might regret that in about 5 minutes." The elevator groaned to a stop and the doors opened to a blast of warm, metallic-smelling air. The sub-basement was bathed in emergency red light, shadows stretching like skeletal fingers across the walls. "Stay close," Ethan said, grabbing a heavy wrench from the toolbench. They moved quickly past the massive water tanks and ventilation ducts, the hiss of escaping gas growing louder. Ava's heels clicked against the concrete until Ethan stopped abruptly. "Loose the shoes," he said without turning. "Excuse me." "They'll slow you down, and if we need to run," before he could finish, she'd already stepped out of them, the concrete cold under her stocking feet. "Happy?" He gave her the faintest smirk. "Safer." They reached the boiler room, intake a maze of pipes, gauges, and a single large valve trembling under the force of escaping pressure. A fine mist hung in the air, catching the crimson glow like dust in a dying sun. Ethan knelt to inspect the valve. "It's corroded. If I can close it halfway, the pressure will drop enough to seal the leak manually. And if you can't," he met her eyes, "then you'll need to run." "No," she said firmly, surprising even herself. "Ava. You don't get to make this decision alone." For a beat, neither spoke. Then he handed her the flashlight. "When I say, now, shine this at the gauge, I need to see the pressure drop." He braced himself, muscles taut, and began to turn the valve. The metal groaned, resisting like it hadn't been moved in decades. Gas hissed louder, a dangerous warning. Now he barked. She lit the gauge. The needle trembled, then began its slow crawl downward. Almost there. A pipe overhead rattled violently, and a seam split with a sharp crack, sending a white cloud bursting toward them. Ava coughed, ice watering. "Keep the light steady," he shouted over the hiss. Finally, with a grinding squeal, the valve locked into place. The hiss softened to a whisper. Ethan ripped a strip of industrial tape from his jacket pocket, sealing the secondary leak in a few quick, practiced moves. Then he looked at her. "We're good. For now." They stood there at the dim, red light, both breathing hard. Ava realized her hands were trembling not from fear exactly, but from the raw immediacy of what they'd just faced. "You could have told me to stay upstairs," she said. "I did," he reminded her. "I didn't listen." For a moment, something unspoken passed between them. Mutual respect, maybe even trust, tempered in the heat and hiss of danger. As they made their way back to the elevator, the building's systems hummed back to life. Emergency lights flickered off, replaced by the warm glow of restored power. When the elevator doors closed, Ava finally exhaled. You think anyone will know what happened tonight? He shook his head. Probably not. That's the thing about this job. If you do it right, nobody notices. But they're safer because of E.T. She studied him, a man who had no title that matched his worth. Maybe it's time they did notice. He gave a small shrug as if it didn't matter, but she saw the flicker in his eyes. By the time they stepped into the lobby, the storm outside had come to a steady rain. The air in the building felt different. Lighter. Ava glanced at him. Thank you. Ethan just nodded as if that word was enough. She knew without entirely understanding why that this night would change the way she looked at him forever. The morning after the gas leak felt almost unnervingly calm. Sunlight spilled through Ava's office windows, golden and clean, as if the city had been washed overnight. But inside her chest a different kind of storm was brewing. She hadn't slept much. The hiss of the gas, the metallic taste in the air, Ethan's steady voice in the boiler room. It all kept replaying. She'd gone down there thinking she was proving something. But it was he who had proved something to her. Her phone buzzed. A calendar reminder. 9 Hatsuro am Corvin. Contract signing. She stared at the words for a long moment, her reflection faint in the glass of the screen. And then she picked it up and pressed a single button. Cancel it, she told her assistant. Pause. All of it? Yes. And tell PR to hold all statements until I speak to the board myself. By mid-morning the boardroom was filled with restless energy. The Corvin executive sat on one side, slick suits and forced smiles. The ardent board members on the other, eyes darting between Ava and the clock. When she walked in, the murmurs quieted. We're not moving forward with this agreement? Ava began, her voice steady but her pulse racing. A low murmur swept through the room. This building is more than steel and profit margins, she continued. What happened last night in our sub-basement was a warning. If we compromise the safety systems for a quick influx of capital, we'll be gambling with lives. That's not a bet I'm willing to make. One of the older board members leaned forward, irritation etched into his brow. Ava, do you understand the financial blow this will cause? She nodded. I Donnerstag and I'll take full responsibility for ET, but I won't trade our integrity for short-term gain. From the corner of her eye she caught Ethan leaning against the doorway, arms crossed, just listening. She didn't know when he'd arrived, but she knew he'd heard enough. The meeting dissolved into debates and splintered conversations, but Ava didn't waver. By noon, Corvin's team had left with tight jaws and empty hands. When she returned to her office there was a small envelope sitting neatly on her desk. No name, just a drawing of a heart in the corner. She opened it to find a child's handwriting. Thank you for keeping my dad safe. He always says a building is like a person, it needs someone to take care of its heart. I think you took care of it too, Lily. Her breath caught. Behind the note was a little sketch of the three of them, Ethan, Lily and Ava, standing under a tall building light glowing from every window. That evening she found Ethan in the service corridor outside the boiler room, tools in hand. You didn't have to say anything in that meeting, he said before she could speak. The board doesn't care what I think. They should, she replied. You've been keeping this building alive for years and last night you saved it again. I'm just making sure they know ET. He gave a half smile, shaking his head. I don't do it for them. Or for you. I know. She hesitated, then added softly, that's why it matters. The next morning, Ava called an all-staff assembly. The atrium filled with people, engineers, receptionists, janitors, department heads, all buzzing with curiosity. She stood at the podium, microphone in hand. Last night, this building faced a critical systems failure that could have endangered every one of us. It was resolved not by an executive order or a corporate policy, but by someone who knows these walls better than anyone else. Someone who listens when the building breathes. Her eyes found Ethan in the crowd standing next to Lily, who was holding his hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. I'm proud to announce that Ethan Cole will be taking on the role of Chief Facilities Integrity Officer, she said. He will have the authority to ensure the safety and sustainability of Arden Tower for decades to come. A wave of applause filled the room. Ethan's jaw tightened slightly, as if unsure what to do with that much attention. When it quieted, he stepped forward to the mic. "I'll accept the role on one condition," he said. A ripple of laughter ran through the crowd. "That I still get to polish the Ardent nameplate on the lobby wall every morning. Some things shouldn't change." The applause grew louder, and Ava felt an unexpected warmth in her chest. Later, as the crowd dispersed, Lily bounded up to her. "Z, you kept your promise." Ava blinked. "What promise?" "That you'd take care of the building's heart." "Dad says you did." Ava crouched to meet the girl's eyes. "Maybe. It's the first time I really did." Lily grinned, the kind of smile that could melt steel beams. "Told you." In that moment, Ava realized the decision she'd made wasn't just about rejecting Corvin. It was about rewriting what Ardent Tower stood for. And maybe in the process, rewriting herself. The press conference was supposed to be routine. Ava had been told that a few local outlets would show up, maybe one or two industry blogs. But when she stepped onto the stage in the atrium of Ardent Tower, the sea of microphones and camera flashes told a different story. Apparently, word travels fast when a corporate CEO walks away from a multi-million-dollar deal to protect the building's heart. She took a breath, hands clasped loosely in front of her, letting the room settle. "Good afternoon," she began, her voice carrying over the crowd. "In the last 72 hours, Ardent Tower has faced challenges that tested not just our systems, but our values. I've always believed that a company's worth is measured not only by its profits, but by its principles. And this week, I saw those principles come alive in the most unexpected way." She paused, her eyes sweeping the audience before landing on a familiar figure near the back. Ethan, in a plain button-up and work boots, standing like he'd wandered into the wrong room. Lily was beside him, her small hand gripping the strap of his worn tool bag like it was a treasure chest. "Most of you don't know him," Ava continued. "He's not a board member or a shareholder. He doesn't have a corner office. But if you've ever walked these halls on a winter morning and felt the warmth of the radiators, or passed the lobby and seen the lights gleaming above your head, you've seen his work." Ethan shifted, uncomfortable under the attention. "This building has a heartbeat," Ava said. "And for years, one man has been keeping it alive without ever asking for recognition. His name is Ethan Cole." The applause began tentatively, then built into something that rolled across the room. Camera flashes popped. Ava motioned for Ethan to join her on stage. He hesitated just long enough for Lily to nudge him forward. When he reached the podium, Ava stepped aside. "Your turn," she murmured. Ethan cleared his throat. "I'm not used to this," he said, earning a ripple of laughter. "I spent most of my time in the boiler room. Not exactly the spotlight." He glanced at Lily before continuing. "I fix things. That's what I do. Stock pipes, wires, the occasional coffee machine that thinks it's a slot machine. But a building isn't just parts, it's people. And when you take care of the people, the building takes care of itself." A voice from the crowd called out, "So what's next for you?" "Chief," Ethan chuckled. "Well, I'll take the new job Ava's offered. On one condition." He turned to her, a playful glint in his eye. "That I still get to polish the Ardent nameplate in the lobby every morning. Some things aren't meant to change." The room erupted in applause again. Ava, caught off guard, found herself smiling in a way she hadn't in a long time. Not the practiced CEO smile, but something real. After the press conference, the media swarmed him with questions. Ethan answered a few, but eventually he leaned down to Lily and whispered, "Let's get some air." They slipped out a side door into the courtyard where the late afternoon sun painted the stone walls gold. Ava found them there a few minutes later, Lily sitting on the edge of a fountain, swinging her legs. "You handled that well," Ava said, walking over. Ethan shrugged. "Just told the truth. That's harder than it sounds." He gave her a long look. "You've been doing it too lately." For a moment, neither spoke. The fountain bubbled softly between them, the city humming in the distance. That evening, Ava's phone wouldn't stop buzzing, messages from journalists, board members, even competitors. But one email stood out. It was from a maintenance worker at a rival skyscraper downtown. We've been told for years to stay invisible. After seeing the press conference, I think maybe it's time to be seen. Ava read it twice, then closed her laptop and looked out over the city skyline. Recognition wasn't just about Ethan, it was about shifting the story of who mattered in the life of a building. The next morning, the Ardent lobby was busier than usual. People stopped Ethan to shake his hand, thank him, even take selfies. He took it all in stride, but Ava noticed the way his eyes softened when a delivery driver passed by and said simply, "Good work, brother." Later, as they crossed paths near the elevator, Ava said quietly, "You've started something." Ethan smiled faintly. Maybe, or maybe people just needed a reminder. In her heart, Ava knew the recognition was just the beginning. The real work, the work of turning that recognition into lasting change, was still ahead. But for now, she let herself enjoy the sight of Ethan laughing with Lily in the lobby, sunlight spilling through the glass above them like a blessing. Because sometimes the best way to lead is to make sure the right people are finally seen. The morning of the unveiling was the kind of crisp New York day that seemed to hum with its own anticipation. Sunlight poured through the towering glass facade of Ardent Tower, glinting off the scaffolding that had wrapped the building for months. Now, for the first time, the tarps were coming down. The plaza out front was alive with movement, employees in neatly pressed suits standing shoulder to shoulder with janitors in work boots, cafe baristas handing out steaming cups to construction crews, and neighborhood families who'd come just to see what all the fuss was about. Somewhere in the middle of it all, Ethan stood with Lily perched on his shoulders, her mittened hands gripping his hair for balance. "You're taller than the mayor now," he teased. "Then I should make a speech," she said, grinning down at him. "Hold that thought," he replied, nodding toward the makeshift stage where Ava was adjusting the microphone. When she looked out over the crowd, her eyes found Ethan's almost immediately. He gave a small nod, the kind that said, "You've got this. Thank you for being here." Ava began, her voice steady but warm. "Today isn't just about new glass or steel or the state-of-the-art energy systems we've installed. It's about something far more important." She stepped aside, gesturing toward the building. "This tower has always been a part of the city's skyline, but today it becomes something more, an example of what happens when we choose to build not just for efficiency, but for people. When we choose to protect what matters, even when it costs us." There was a murmur of agreement from the crowd. Ethan felt Lily shift on his shoulders, leaning forward like she was trying to catch every word. Ava continued. "And none of it would have been possible without the man who knows this building better than anyone alive. The man who kept it breathing when no one else knew how. The man who reminded us that a building's true strength comes from the heart that keeps it alive." She paused, looking directly at him. "Ethan Cole. Would you join me up here?" The crowd clapped, some even cheering. Ethan put Lily down gently, and she tugged his sleeve. "Go, Dad. I'll save your spot." On stage, Ethan adjusted the microphone, glancing out over the sea of faces. "I don't usually talk this much," he began, earning a soft laugh from the audience. "But today, I'll make an exception. This building. It's more than walls and wires. It's where people spent their days, where memories get made, where folks come in out of the cold and feel like they belong somewhere. You don't keep a place like that alive just by tightening bolts or replacing filters. You keep it alive by caring. And caring isn't in the job description. It's a choice you make every single day." He looked over at Ava, then his voice softer. "She made that choice too, even when it would have been easier not to." A hush fell over the crowd, not the polite quiet of formality, but the deep, attentive silence that meant every single person was with him in that moment. When the speeches ended, Ava and Ethan stood side by side, each with a hand on the thick red ribbon strung across the entrance. "Ready?" she asked. "Only if you are," he replied. The scissors closed with a crisp snip, and the crowd erupted. Workers began pulling down the last of the tarps, revealing the gleaming new facade beneath, a perfect blend of modern efficiency and classic charm, sunlight dancing across the fresh surface like it had been waiting for this day. Children darted forward to explore the plaza's new benches and planters. Employees took selfies against the shining glass, and a jazz trio from the cafe on the corner struck up a tune that made the whole scene feel like something out of an old movie. Lily ran up to her dad, eyes wide. "It's like the building is smiling." Ethan crouched to her level. Maybe it is. New skin on the outside, same heart on the inside. Ava overheard, and her smile was slow but certain. That's exactly what we were building, she said. As the afternoon wore on, the plaza transformed into a celebration, neighbors dropping by with flowers, kids chalking bright drawings on the concrete, and employees inviting the construction crew into the lobby for cake and coffee. For once, the lines between titles and uniforms seemed to dissolve. The CEO laughed with the janitor, the architect danced with the barista, and for a few precious hours, everyone belonged in the same story. Standing near the entrance, Ethan looked up at the building, its polished surface reflecting the city around it. You know, he said quietly to Ava, for all the work we did out here at the Letitia. The real change happened in here. He tapped his chest. She met his gaze. Buildings don't change people, Ethan. People change people. It was the kind of line that would stay with him long after the crowd went home. By the time the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the plaza, the party was winding down. But the warmth in the air lingered, as if the building itself was holding onto the joy a little longer. And somewhere in that fading light, Ava found herself imagining not just the future of Arden Tower, but the lives it would continue to shelter, lives made better because two people had chosen to fight for its heart. The last of the scaffolding had been hauled away, and Arden Tower stood unguarded in the evening light, its glass skin catching every shade of the fading sun. The plaza was nearly empty now, only the echo of laughter from earlier still seemed to hum in the air like a song the city wasn't ready to stop playing. Ethan, Ava, and Lily walked together down the quiet street, their steps unhurried. A cool autumn breeze carried the smell of roasted chestnuts from a vendor on the corner. Lily skipped ahead a few paces, her pink scarf fluttering like a banner, but she kept glancing back to make sure they were close. For the first time in months, neither Ava nor Ethan felt the weight of looming deadlines or fragile truces. Tonight was not about battles won or losses avoided. Tonight was simply theirs. "Dad," Lily called over her shoulder. "Can you tell the story again? The one about the man who keeps the heart of the building beating?" Ethan chuckled softly. "Haven't you heard it enough times by now?" "No," she insisted. "I like how you tell it, you make it sound like magic." Ava smiled, watching them. "Magic in a boiler room?" Ethan shot her a playful look. "Magic is just what you call hard work when it feels like love." He began, his voice settling into the rhythm of a tale, well-worn but still precious. "Once there was a building," he said, "and inside it was a heart, not a real one, but something just as important. It kept everyone warm in the winter, cool in the summer, and safe in the storms. But one day, the heart started to slow, and people didn't notice. Except for one man. He climbed down into the boiler room, where it was dark and loud, and he listened. And when he heard the heart's faint beat, he decided he wouldn't let it stop. Not on his watch." Lily's eyes glimmered. "And he fixed it?" Ethan nodded. "He fixed it, but not alone. Someone else listened, too. Someone who didn't know she could hear until she tried." Ava's gaze softened. "Sounds like she was late to the story." "Maybe," Ethan said, "but she got there in time to help." Lily grinned between them like she knew more than either of them would admit. They reached the corner where the last of the sunset spilled down the avenue, painting the building's gold. Arden Tower loomed behind them, not just taller, but somehow prouder, its windows catching the last light as though storing it for the night. Ava slowed, her voice quieter now. "Ethan. You didn't just save that building. You saved me." He met her eyes not with surprise, but with a warmth that said he understood exactly what she meant. "We saved each other, Ava. Some things you can't do alone." Lily slipped her hand into Ava's, and for a moment, the three of them just stood there, framed by the glow of the city and the hum of traffic like a small island in the current of New York's endless rush. In the distance, the tower's lobby lights blinked on, spilling golden warmth onto the sidewalk. Ethan glanced back at it one last time. "Funny," he murmured. "I used to think a building was just a job. Now, it feels like part of my family." Ava followed his gaze. "It is, and families take care of each other." They started walking again, their shadows stretching long in the street lamps. The city around them was alive. Horns honking, street musicians playing for tips, a couple laughing on the corner. But inside their little circle, there was only the quiet certainty of belonging. A warm hush settled over the scene. The kind that comes when a chapter has ended, but the story is still alive in the telling. And as they disappeared into the steady pulse of the city, the lights of Arden Tower seemed to shine just a little brighter, like a heart still beating strong. Somewhere deep inside the boiler room thrummed steadily, keeping its promise just as the man who once stood there had kept his. Sometimes the greatest heroes aren't the ones in capes. They're the ones who quietly keep the world around us alive. Maybe you've met someone like Ethan, a person who doesn't just fix what's broken but protects the heart of something bigger. Maybe you've been that person yourself. Now I'd love to hear from you. Where are you listening from tonight? Drop your city, your state, or your country in the comments. I always read them, and it's amazing to see our little storytelling family spread across the world. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next one. And if you think someone you know needs a little light in their heart today, share this video with them. From my heart to yours, thank you for being here, for listening, and for keeping these stories alive. Until next time, keep listening for the quiet beats that make life worth living.